Great. Well, welcome everyone to our Sparlin Experts webinar on the safety shutoff valves for A2L systems. As we go through the presentation today, the chat function will be disabled, so communication will be through the Q&A screens only. We encourage you to submit your questions there and we'll address them during the presentation. Our co-host Paul is queuing up some questions before we get started, so be sending him your inquiries early. Additionally, all participants will receive a follow-up email after the webinar containing the resources and materials presented today. Before we dive in, I'd like to introduce our presenters. Ricardo is our manager for solenoid valves, value-added assemblies, couplings, distributors, and check valves. He holds a bachelor's degree in industrial and systems engineering and an MBA with a concentration in finance from the University of Tec Milenio in Monterrey, Mexico. We're also joined by Paul Chambers, who will join in the conversation today. Paul's currently in the role of applications engineer with an emphasis on training. He holds a science degree in engineering technology from Pittsburgh State University in Kansas. While at Pittsburgh State, he dual majored in mechanical engineering technology and automotive technology. So now, without any further ado, let's get started. Gentlemen, it's yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. And today, what we're going to do today is we're going to connect three things, right? Why the U.S. is transitioning refrigerants, how to make that possible in a safely manner, and which Parker's Portland components help you comply efficiently with these safety requirements. So let's start with the policy backdrop, right? In 2016, the Kigali Amendment established a global phase down of high GWP HFCs. So that set the stage for U.S. action and accelerated the shift towards low GWP A2L refrigerants in commercial refrigeration. So in 2020, the U.S. enacted the AIM Act.
Yeah.
So then between 2021 and 2022, UL and CSA harmonized UL 6335-2.89 to the 2019 IEC revision, creating a clear North American certification pathway for A2L commercial appliances. In 2023, the EPA published the Technology Transitions Rule, setting a GWP limit for remote condensing units of 300 and 150 for cold storage warehouses, and both of them with an implementation date on January 1st, 2026, which is really close.
Yeah, coming up.
And establishing January 1st, 2027 for supermarket systems. So with that in mind, we need now to talk about what are A2L refrigerants and why they are central to this transition. So A2Ls are lower toxicity, mildly flammable refrigerants that deliver low global warming potential with good efficiency and capacity. But that balance lets equipment meet AM and Kigali goals. It comes with a trade-off, and the trade-off is, since these are mildly flammable, it requires some standards and the right components to come in.
Yeah.
So UL 6335-2-89 sets hazard-based protective measures to prevent flammable concentrations in enclosed spaces. Practically, this means charge limit size based on the space, and refrigerant, ignition source controls, and depending on your design, you may need also leak detection, ventilation, and all these measures add design and system compliance complexity. But they're pretty straightforward when you architect the system for a safety from the start. So this is where Parker's Portland helps. We've developed 2 key valves that support this compliance and the serviceability of a system. And the solenoid shutoff valve, or SSOV, and the shack shutoff valve is what we came up with. Okay, so in this image, we can appreciate a simplified but typical refrigeration system that shows the refrigeration cycle. And we have 2 main areas. First one is the indoor area that is indicated by this black dotted line and represents the enclosed space where we or where the refrigerant is being expanded, and evaporated. And we have the outdoors area, anything outside of that square where the solenoid shut-off valve is. In this case, we have it in the liquid line going into the building, and we have the check shut-off valve that can be seen in the suction area, preventing the refrigerant to migrate back into the structure. Let's talk first about the solenoid.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay,
Absolutely.
So the valve is based on the existing Sportland E-Series offering. So it's already very well known and established quality on this product. The SSOVs have to be normally closed, and we're doing normally closed for SSOVs only.
Yep.
But one big plus is that it uses a Class F rated coil MKC.
Yeah, so it's our standard coil that you would see on an E-Series valve.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it can be installed in the liquid, suction, or discharge line, which adds to the versatility of this valve. And like the E-Series, this is rated for 500 PSI MRP, and it works properly from -40 to 240 Fahrenheit, and in an ambient temperature of up to 120 F.
Yeah.
But how do I know if I have a SSOV, if it's very similar to the solenoid valve? Well, it's identified with a yellow tag that is on top.
Yep.
So instead of having your blue regular tag, you'll have a yellow tag, and it would also say SSOV.
Yeah, so for anyone who's not aware, we normally have it's an aluminum tag on top of that solenoid, and it would say the valve model. It's very important to not lose that tag because it is specific to not the coil, but the valve. So you get a valve that'll have the tag on it, get a coil, put it underneath the tag. And yeah, on a traditional solenoid, you might see ME3, 120, all that stuff. It'd be blue. Here you're going to see SSOV and it'll be yellow.
Mm-hmm.
Don't lose it.
Don't lose it, please. So how do I make sure that I select the right SSOV for my application? I think this is probably the most important part of selecting a valve. And so let's do a small selection exercise. So for all solenoid valves, we need to know a couple things. We need to know what the fluid is. We need to know what the capacity requirements are, and we need to know what the pressure differential is, right? So let's assume we're looking for a valve, 454C.
Yep.
That we need a 7-ton capacity for the liquid line with a 3 PSI of pressure drop.
Yep.
So here are our conditions: fluid 454C, capacity 7-ton, and pressure drop 3 PSI. And we go to our bulletin 3040, which is the bulletin for SSOVs and CSOVs. We go to the liquid capacity table on page 5 of the bulletin 3040. And we go find our fluid, which is in this case 454C. There you go, 454C. And we have all of our pressure drop settings for this. We go for the pressure drop that we were requiring, which is a pressure drop of 3. And then we go find the closest to our application, which we say it's 7 tons. So we go there, 7 tons. We look on the very left column in there, which is our valve model. And we can tell that for these specific conditions, we use an SSOV, or we need an SSOV 10 for our application.
Yeah. I think a good comment here. Sometimes you might have a tech go out and he says, I don't know what pressure drop I'm looking for. He says, I know I have a 7-ton, I know the tonnage of my walk-in, let's say an RCU. I know the tonnage of my walk-in, I know the refrigerant, but I don't know what pressure drop I'm looking for. Well, there are other tools we can use that we'll talk about in a second, but also just generally come to this bulletin in middle of the graph, you want some pressure drop to help that valve close, and you don't want it to be 25 pounds drop. But if they didn't know it to look in the middle of the graph, they could also use
this great tool that's called Virtual Engineer. So if you visit sportland.com and click on the link Parker's Portland Virtual Engineer in one of the graphs in there, you'll get to our website where
Yeah.
it will help you select the right valve for your application.
There is a toggle on that page for selecting safety shutoff valves. So you can select a solenoid valve, and you might be able to select I got a traditional E series valve. If you're trying to size an SSOV, make sure you select that little toggle.
Correct. Now, a little bit of troubleshooting SSOV. So this is really important to mention. If we have some leakage or damage, we find that the main thing is we need to replace, not repair. And the reason for that is these were factory tested to make sure that they comply with the UL requirements. So the valve body is non-serviceable. However, there may be some other problems that are not the leakage or damage, like a shattering valve. And this is where we can check the coil. We can replace the coil. What we cannot replace or fix is the valve or its internal components, because these were factory tested. But the coil, we can play along with it a little bit.
Yeah. So it, I mean, that's what we started with talking about, like
Yeah.
UL testing, UL spec. Basically, we are certified saying that this is a safety shutoff valve.
Mhm.
Once you take it apart on the back of your, toolbox and you put it back together, I can't really say certified safety shutoff valve anymore.
Correct.
I will say though, for troubleshooting, you still can use, just like another E-series solenoid. We have those coil magnets you can slide over. So if you wanted to do some, let's say some service work, you want to open it up back up, or just check the mechanical function of the valve, you could use that. There's also little like kind of compass magnets you can use to see that it is energized. So if you, there are some tools normal to solenoids that could be used on these valves.
Correct. Yeah, the main takeaway from this one is
Don't take it apart.
don't take it apart. Correct. So now let's move to the shack shutoff valve, CSOV. And the CSOV has a hermetic design, so this helps us not to have leaks out of the product.
Yeah.
This goes, it's a tight seal and check valve. It's very tight, but it goes only in the suction line. So they're rated for 650, sorry, PSI on the smaller sizes,
Yeah.
and the 500 PSI on the large dual valve sizes. Also, like the SSOV is rated from -40 to 240 F. And unlike the solenoid valve, where you have to go to your selection tables, the selection of this is by line size. And we offer connections that go from 1/2 inch to 2 5/8 of an inch. So we have a broad variety of this product that can fit almost any size of piping out there for refrigeration systems.
Yeah.
And when installing, it is required that we use a nitrogen purge and a wet rag bracing method to avoid any damage to the internal seals. And one of the greatest things about our CSOV is that they can be mounted in any direction. So the only thing is we need to make sure that our pressure differential varies a little bit if we put it horizontal versus vertical. And when installing, also let's make sure that we check the arrows for flow that are in the label.
Yeah.
So it's time for a recap. So bringing it all together.
Yep.
The Kigali and AMAC provide the policy push. The EPA's technology transition rules set the timelines. And UL 6335-2-89 defines the safety framework that makes A2L viable in commercial refrigeration or commercial equipment.
Yeah.
Parker's Portland, SSOV, and CSOV, it's the practical field-ready tool to execute safely, efficiently, and on schedule your installation of A2L's products.
Yeah.
So SSOVs, these are solenoid shutoff valves. That's what SSOV stands for. To identify them by their yellow tag, remember it's non-field serviceable, and the selection depends on the application. And the CSOV stands for check shut-off valve. You need to use a nitrogen purge and a wet rack while installing it. It's a hermetic design. The selection of this is by line size. And you can also use Virtual Engineer to help you with your selection.
I think while we're on this page, I'll point out, because we have them side by side, and one says, use a wet rag. The other one doesn't say that. I think if you were to look through the literature, it does say to follow standard installation procedures for an E-series valve
Correct.
when installing that, which I believe would also call for a wet rag.
Yeah.
So it's not that you can burn up the solenoid and don't burn up the check valve. Don't burn either valve.
Correct.
The solenoid, the check valve being a piece of copper spun copper is particularly,
Mhm. It's all copper, so the heat. the
easy
heat
to burn,
sink in
easy
there
to
is-
burn if you take the torch over. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Correct, yes. So, thank you for your time today, guys. We move to Q&A next, and we're happy to dive deeper into your specific questions.
Yeah, so I think I have already gotten one question about this, and it has to do with the solenoid, and can it be used in place of a regular valve? So kind of, exchanging their.
Yeah, so short answer is yes, you can, but the extended answer will be you can use the SSOV in exchange of a solenoid valve, but you cannot use a solenoid valve in exchange of an SSOV or a regular E-series solenoid valve in exchange of an SSOV. And also, when considering this, SSOVs really have a disadvantage, if you want to see it that way, against the normal solenoid when talking about solenoid, because it's non-serviceable. So it's also mean that if you want to fix your solenoid valve, you will have to replace it. So I would say yes, if you don't have anything else in hand to put in there, but you really want to use a regular solenoid valve where an SSOV is not required.
Yeah. And so somebody else is asking about, could these be used with press fittings, zoom out fittings, stuff like that?
The fittings. No, but our company is always trying to improve and enhance and do further developments on all product lines. So if there's a case for that, we will certainly do it in the future.
Right. See if I can't pick out So this is actually a good question, and I might have to go back to it later because I don't know the answer off the top of my head. Do you know, are these SSOVs stamped in the body, or is it only on that it's an SSOV, or is it only on the yellow tag? Might be a question I have to come back to. That's a good one.
I'll have to come back on that one. As far as I remember, I think it's just the tag, but
Yeah. So we'll come back to that, and also
Yes.
for reference, if anyone asking questions that I don't get to, this is recorded. We can come back to these questions and get answers out as well. So, let's see. Anything else? Will the SSOV take the place of traditional liquid line solenoid valve? Yeah, and so that was kind of what we were talking about earlier. Is you can, and not only can it be used anywhere in the system, but yes, you can use it in place of a liquid line solenoid valve. The duty is fine. It's not going to wear out too fast. And yeah, we wouldn't, as much as I'd love you to buy two valves, because buy as many valves from us as you want, there would be no need to double up on liquid line solenoid valves, one for safety, one for regular use. And yeah, let's take one more look and then we have a question about pressure drop, and I believe that was in the bulletin. Is for pressure drop for the CSOV is what I'm reading. And so it did have those minimum pressure drops as well, right? In the bulletin, we have minimum pressure drops for the CSOV.
Yes, they're in the bulletin 3040. Yes.
Right. There's a lot coming in. Question, yeah, lots more questions coming in. I'll have to get back to some of these because
Yes.
Stay Bright 8. So that's a question about how to solder these in. Any traditional solder method would work for these, correct?
Correct.
Nothing specific. So Stay Bright 8, I actually love that stuff. It's
Mhm.
runs really smooth. I don't know how much you've raised around, but soldered around. that would be no concern. We would still recommend using a wet rag anytime you're taking a torch to one of these products. Let's see. So someone is asking, they missed the explanation. Why can't a standard solenoid valve be used in place of an SSOV?
Okay, so why a standard solenoid valve cannot be used instead of an SSOV? So the SSOV is a modified version of a solenoid valve that complies with the UL requirements, and they are factory tested. Therefore, the no serviceable on the field tax comes from is not exactly the same valve. It's got some modifications to comply with that. So I don't know if that answers the question or not. But the SSOV can be used in exchange of the regular series eval.
Yeah, so there's the rating, and then there was some construction to help it close on those, especially, so these are all normally closed valves.
Correct.
Versus on an E-Series, you can get normally open versus or normally closed. And traditionally in solenoid valves, you see a pressure drop required to help close things.
Correct.
That's why we don't want you massively oversizing a solenoid valve on a traditional valve. Well, here we had to do a little bit more work to make sure that it would close at any pressure drops. That way, let's say the system is off, it's still going to normally close. You know, the chances of things staying open are nothing, because for the safety requirements that you have that. We have someone asking about using the check valve, safety check valve for comfort cooling applications.
So this product line was intended for commercial refrigeration. We have A2L gases for this. I don't think A2L gases are widely used for comfort applications.
Oh, no, they are. They are.
I mean, on this application, yeah.
Oh, this application. No, so the answer would be, while it wasn't necessarily designed for that market, if you wanted to install it, nothing would stop you. So as long as you follow the specs in the bulletin, talking about liquid temps, ambient temps, stuff like that,
Yes.
nothing would preclude you from using one of these in another A2L application, but they were designed predominantly for the
Commercial refrigeration.
commercial refrigeration.
Correct. Yes.
All right. And then the last question I think I'll get to for now is, what was the rule on how far the suction had to check had to be from the walk-in? So that is not a rule from us.
No.
And it says, is putting it in the condensing unit acceptable? So yeah, that's not a rule from us on where it has to be. But that is a rule from UL on the attempt to, back to that initial diagram, is the attempt to keep in commercial refrigeration, to keep the A2L gas from coming, or A2L fluid to come back to the indoor portion. So you could put it right outside, or if it was like a rooftop condensing unit. I mean, in some of these applications, they drop right out of the unit into the building. And so yeah, in that application, you would be going in the condensing unit.
So the intention of this is, if there's a leak inside the building, you want most of the mildly flammable gas out of the enclosed space, right?
Yeah. So I would go back to, yes, it doesn't have to be so many feet from the building, as long as, I'm gonna say this again, you follow the specs of the device. So if you know that the ambient temperature in the condensing unit is going to exceed the approved ambient condition of the CSOV, I would not recommend putting it in. Maybe pull that outside the cabinet first, then drop into the building. But if conditions are fine, there's no minimum requirement from the building that the CSOV would have to be.
Correct.
It's just going to shut off flow. I think we're good. I can get to the rest of the questions later. So
yeah,
we got a lot of questions today. Thanks for giving us your input. I think what we can probably do is maybe the couple of questions that we didn't have answers to, we're going to send an email later today. We'll go ahead and just drop those questions, the Q&As in there, and that way that'll go out to everybody. So super helpful information today, guys. Thanks a bunch. We want to thank everybody for joining us on our A2L Safety Valves webinar. We hope you found this information valuable. If you want to circle back on this information, go to the Sporlan YouTube channel where you'll find a library of videos highlighting some of our products and some of the basic and advanced educational topics. Thank you to our presenters, Ricardo Flores and Paul Chambers, for sharing their expertise and insights. Again, remember, we'll be sending a follow-up email with some of the resources today, the links to the different materials that we talked about. So keep an eye on your inbox. We appreciate your participation and engagement. If you enjoyed this session, we invite you to join for our next webinar where we'll dive deeper into the R290 product offerings. So stay tuned to our social media channels for the announcement and registration info. The session was recorded and will be on our YouTube channel where you can view our video and also view some of the video shorts that we've got available. So thanks again for attending. Have a great day.